What up, my fellow moto junkies? How about that San Francisco mud race, huh? It was a good one. Now, me, personally, usually I hate mud races. So when I heard that this thing was going to be a rain mud fest, I was disappointed. I thought it was going to suck like most of them. But it was actually pretty good. I mean, it was entertaining from beginning to end. I had a smile on my face through the entire main event. It was epic. Dirtworks, they did a fantastic job maintaining this track over the last couple of days of it raining. They canceled press day yesterday and the practice sessions today. They only did one qualifying session, which was good. Helped maintain the integrity of the track, which I'm sure them boys appreciated as well. I'm sure most of them would not have come out for a second qualifying session. So all in all, it worked out pretty good. One thing people were probably a little irritated about, and that's after the heat races, they decided to take out the whoop section. Now me, I agree with that decision. I think the whoops were a sloppy, wet mess. People were getting out of sorts in them, wrecking even. So I think it was a good decision by Dirtworks to take out the whoops. As for the rest of it, they maintained it pretty well through the night. It was a pretty good raceable track for the way Mother Nature poured on it all weekend. With that being said, let's dive into these heat races. That boy is looking very, very consistent. If RJ's not careful, Jordan Smith is going to steal and run away with this championship easily. Now, just like A1, Jordan Smith come out of the gate in both races, ran consistent up front, getting good points for the first two rounds. Now, the heat race, he started out in second place. That's where he ran for about the first half of the heat race. Ended up going down in them sloppy whoops. Fell back to fourth, but once he got up and got moving again, he worked his way back up to second, which is a pretty good heat race. You start out in second and you end up in second. That's the definition of consistency in my book. As for that main event, once again, he started up front. Only this time, instead of starting in second, he started in first. And once he got first, got through that first rhythm lane clean, he took off with it. And he led the entire main event from beginning to end without anybody pressuring him, trying to steal the lead away from him. Not only did he win that main event, but he stole that red plate right off of RJ Hampshire's Husqvarna. So RJ, you better watch your back, boy, because Jordan Smith is hungry to finally win a championship. He has worked hard for it, went through the struggles, and he knows that he is capable of doing it. Now RJ, he was having a pretty consistent night himself till he got robbed. He come out in that heat race, started in fourth place, didn't take him long to move up to third, spent the rest of the race working his way up to second. Once he got to second, that's all the farther he was going, because the leader was 20 seconds ahead at that point. But to start in fourth, work your way up to second, that's a pretty good start to the evening. But just like RJ does, one good race, one bad race. That main event, he come out, got a horrible start. He come across that whole shot line in 10th place. But within the first 4 minutes of that main event, he worked his way from 10th all the way up to 4th. Once he got to 4th, he was in a three-way battle with two other guys for second place. Those two guys were Max Volan and the privateer, Anthony Bourdon. Now, they battled for a lap or two, but Anthony Bourdon would make a mistake, go down, and he brought RJ Hampshire down with him. Once RJ was down on the ground, he was pretty slow at getting up. By the time he got up and got going again, RJ was all the way back in 12th place. There's only a few minutes in a lap left in the main event, so he would only be able to work his way up to 9th, which is not bad for the cards he was dealt. He was running pretty consistent up front, 4th place, trying to get up to 3rd and 2nd. Someone else wrecked him, not his fault. He did the best he could with the cards he was dealt. But once again, if he's not careful, Jordan Smith will steal this championship. Just like Jordan Smith, and the way these two rode at Anaheim 1, Levi Kitchen was consistent as well. He come out in that heat race, crossed the whole shot line in 3rd place. He passed a person and got passed by a person throughout that heat race, but he started in 3rd, ended up in 3rd. Once again, definition of consistent. As for that main event, he had a little bit more trouble. Now, he got a good start. He come across the whole shot line in 6th place. But halfway down that first rhythm lane, the mud yanked him off the track, so he had to finish that rhythm lane on the plywood. By the time he got back on the track, he had fell all the way to 15th place. Now, I don't know how he did it, but throughout the next 10 minutes of that main event, Levi Kitchen climbed from 15th all the way to 2nd place. If he wouldn't have got pulled off the track by the mud in that first rhythm lane, he'd have probably stole the lead from Jordan Smith and won this thing. Because to come from 15th to 2nd, passing 13 people in 10 minutes, that's phenomenal. He is definitely looking like the third threat for this title. These three boys, Jordan Smith, RJ Hampshire, Levi Kitchen, they are going to be duking it out every single round, the entire championship for this title. And I cannot wait to see the rest of it, because the way these three boys are riding, it is going to be lit. Just like his teammate Levi, Max Volan, he had a pretty consistent night as well. He had a decent heat race, starting out in 2nd, had a couple bobbles, got passed by a couple people, being RJ and his teammate Levi, ended up in 4th place. But to start your heat race in 2nd, end up in 4th in the mud, get passed by 2 of the championship contenders, that's not too bad. As for the main event, it did not go his way whatsoever. He got a phenomenal start. He come around that whole shot line in 2nd place. And that's where he stayed for the first half of that main event. He ran in 2nd place behind Jordan Smith consistently, only letting Jordan Smith pull out by a few seconds. But with about 5 minutes, 30 seconds to go in the main event, he had worn out his clutch. His bike gave out. He wasn't going any farther. So a consistent run in 2nd place in that main event turned into a DNF because he was working his clutch too hard. I think it's because it's hydraulic. If he wouldn't have been running a hydraulic clutch, if he'd have had a cable clutch like the old school boys, he'd have probably finished that main event in 2nd place. But you run them hydraulic clutches in the mud, they are going to give out on you 90% of the time. We have seen it time and time again. So if I was these boys, next time there's a mud race, I would definitely consider putting a cable clutch on my bike. Joe Shimoda. This boy was on the redemption train tonight. He was looking phenomenal the first half of the night. He come out in that heat race, pretty much got the whole shot. Once he did, he checked out. Jordan Smith stayed with him for the first half of the race. But like I said, Jordan Smith went down, fell back to 4th. Once that happened, nobody else contended for the lead off of Joe Shimoda. By the time the heat race was done, he had a 20-second gap, looking like he was going to earn some points and work his way up the leaderboard by the end of the night. But coming out in that main event, things would take a salty turn for Joe. He got a good start. He started in 4th, but halfway down that 2nd rhythm lane, he just pushed a little bit too hard, ended up washing the front, and went down. By the time he got up, he was in the back of the pack around like 15th place. And 2 turns later, for no reason whatsoever, his bike just went kaput. And that right there was the end of his main event. I don't know what happened to his bike, but for it to go out 4 turns into the main event, it had to be something with the motor, because he didn't even have a chance to run it hot yet. If that wouldn't have happened, he'd have probably finished on the podium and gained some points in this championship and got himself back in the title hunt. I hope things get better for him in San Diego and he can run up front, because if not, his championship hopes are done. Because the other 3 boys have been consistent the last 2 rounds, and they are probably going to remain so for the next 5 or 6 of them. Moving on down the list, I think there's one person that we need to keep an eye on besides these top few. This dude is looking fantastic on that MCR Honda. He got a really bad start in that heat race. He was pretty much dead last, but he didn't worry about it. He stayed cool, calm, collect, and somehow in that 6-minute heat race, he went from pretty much dead last to 5th place, working his way through people slipping left to right, falling down all over the place. And then in the main event, he would do the same exact thing. Once again, he'd get a bad start, pretty much dead last. Through that 10-minute main event, he would work his way all the way up to 5th place. Now, he had a little help with 3 or 4 of them guys' bike breaking down. He would have been about 8th or 9th. But hey, that's how you get points. You stay in it, and you don't make mistakes, and you don't fry your engine. So he went from last to 5th in both his heat and main event. So these boys better watch out for that MCR Honda, because he has been looking damn good these first 2 rounds of this championship. Now, we're going to go from fantastic to horrible. Nate, he had a very bad night at San Francisco. Things did not go his way one bit. He come out in his heat race, starting out in 15th place. Now, he would do good from there. He caught a groove, worked his way from 15th all the way up to 9th place within that 6 minutes. But on the very last lap of that heat race, he would throw it away. He'd go down, fall from 9th to 10th, end up having to go to LCQ. First LCQ he's had to go to since 2021. Now, he did good in the LCQ. He picked that far inside gate, making sure he'd get a start up front. Got a good jump out the gate. Worked in his favor. He got the whole shot. And from there, he led the entire LCQ from beginning to end, solidifying his spot in that main event. But once again, bad gate pick. So coming in that main event, he would get a horrible start in 14th place. And then from there, it would just get worse. He'd make a couple mistakes, probably went down, fell from 14th to 20th in the first couple minutes of that main. But then from there, he caught a groove, started climbing through the pack, got all the way up to 12th within the next 3 minutes. But then, just like the other couple boys, his bike would die on him with a few laps to go. And he would be the 3rd or 4th person for his bike to go out on him in the mud. So Nate Thrasher, he had a horrible night. I don't know if it was because of the mud or if he was not feeling well because of hurting his shoulder last week. But up until his bike broke on him, he was not having a good night. And that was just the icing on the cake. Bad night for Nate Thrasher. Hopefully he can turn it around in San Diego, because we all know he's better than that. But the way things looked the first 2 rounds, I wouldn't count on it. The Muck-Off boys. These 2 are looking good this year. Coming out in that main event, they started right beside each other, 7th and 8th place, working off each other for the first couple minutes till Marchbanks would make a mistake, go down. He fell back to 13th. From there, he comes all the way back up to 4th place by the end of the main event. Last 2 laps, Filthy Phil in 3rd, Garrett Marchbanks in 4th. Garrett would steal the podium position off of Phil Nicoletti. They both joked about it in their podium interview, laughed it off. But those 2 are looking pretty good and consistent. I see them 2 being in the top 5 every single main event for the rest of the season, because they are definitely looking good. So that's it for the 250 class. There's so much action that went on in San Francisco. I'm going to have to break down the 450s in a second video. But the way things are looking right now, we have a good title front with about 3 or 4 dudes up front. The other guys having bad luck. See if it turns around for them. But sometimes that's just the way things go in the sport. I'll see you guys on the next video when I break down the 450s.